All right, so we got a 2000 Honda Civic in here. Reason it's in here, I really hate making videos like this. I don't want to, but this is the reason why mechanics get a bad name or a bad rap. People think that we're untrustworthy or shady, and it's stuff like this. And I'm not going to name the shop that he took it to because I don't actually know what it is, but I know the chain that he took it to. I don't know which one it was, but anyway, I'm not going to name it. But he took it there to get inspected. Here in St. Louis, you have to have safety and emission inspections every year, every other year, depending on the year of your car, if it's an odd year, even year, or whatever. But this is an '07 Civic, so it was due, and they do a safety inspection on it. They go over the suspension, the brakes, and all that good stuff. And then they do an emission test on it. And anyway, they said he needed lower ball joints on this car. And the problem I have with that is, you can see here, this car was brought to me July 20th at 2019, so less than 2 years ago. And I actually put new lower control arms and ball joints on this car less than 2 years ago. And so when he called me and told me that, I figured, well, they're just being shady. There's no way that, I mean, I just from the name of the shop he told me, the chain, I knew right away that they're just being probably shady. So, and they had no idea that I just changed these, because it's been about a year and a half. So the control arm and the ball joint looks, like it's been on there a while. So they just go for the low, from what he said, they gave him a pretty big quote on it. So they're just trying to make the money. And the problem with that is, like the mechanics, everyone thinks mechanics are shady or whatever. We're actually not shady. It's the service riders and the people that are above us that, people don't realize a lot of these shops work on commission, selling parts, and working on commission and stuff. So if they come in and this car comes in and it passes inspection, they're only getting, $12 for it or whatever it is for the inspection. And they don't make any money. They're not making much money off the car unless they find something wrong with it. And then when they find something wrong with it, they're hoping that you're going to have them fix it, and they can make all this money off the parts, which is great if there is something wrong with it. It's totally fair to let the shop do that, and it's a good way for the shop to make money. But if they're going to be shady and the parts aren't bad, then that's where we run into the problem. So I've already checked this car out, and the ball joints are not bad. There's no play at all. And then I told the customer, or the guy that brought the car to me, and told him that there's nothing wrong with it. And then he called that place, and they started backpedaling a little bit and saying, well, we'll take care of you on other stuff. Well, what does that mean? He's almost admitting that because once it's in the system, they can't change it. Once it's all computerized now, and it goes to the state patrol. So anyway, I'm going to show you how you can check your ball joints, your suspension yourself real quick, and why this car does not need anything, and the shop's being shady. And if you have an inspection done and you don't feel like it's fair, or that they're just trying to scam you or whatever, at least here in St. Louis, you can call the highway patrol and have them look at the car, and you have backup there. You can get it resolved without having to spend all the money, because from what he said, it's a pretty big bill they were trying to give him on this. So we'll show you how to check it real quick, and I'll show you this whole suspension is very tight on this. There's nothing on the suspension that should have failed. So, and I'll show you just some quick checks on how to do that real quick at home before you even take it in if you wanted to. But even if you took it somewhere and they said something was wrong, this is how you can check it. So let's check it real quick, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so I got the car up in the air. I actually got it up a little higher than you would have to get it up in the air if you were just checking this at home by yourself. The reason why I got it up in the air so far is because I was going to just go ahead and tear the car apart and fix or replace the ball joints. And I ended up not doing that. And the other thing about that too is if I take these control arms and ball joints off and take them back to O'Reilly's, I got a lifetime warranty. And I do a lot of business with them, so they wouldn't question it at all. But the problem with that is then you're basically stealing from that company too, because you're warranting out an item that doesn't need to be warranted. So they're giving you parts for free and taking back their old parts that were still fine. So in a way, you're stealing from them too. So the whole thing is kind of crappy. But anyway, get it up in the air, and then we're gonna, first thing I always do, I check the side-to-side movement. You want to grab it at like the 3 o'clock and the 9 o'clock and go back and forth with it. And you can see there's basically no play. You'll have a tiny bit because the rack and the steering wheel is going to move a little bit, but there's no play in the wheel, and that will check your tie rod, your inner and outer tie rod. And sometimes if you got like a bad wheel bearing, it almost, if your wheel bearing is bad, almost anywhere you grab it, it's going to move. Now we'll check the ball joint, and when you do that, there's a couple ways you can do that. First thing I always do is just kind of check the horizontal movement of it and see, so I'll grab it 12 and 6, and I mean there's absolutely zero play at 12 to 6 on this. Now this ball joint, the other thing you can do is pull up on it with the pry bar, and if that ball joint is bad, there'll be movement up and down. And you can actually see that, you would be able to see that, if you had somebody there, they could take a pry bar and stick it under the wheel. And like I said, you don't have to have it this high up in the air to check this. Normally if you would check it, it'd be down here. But you can take it, put it under the wheel, and pull up on the wheel. And if that ball joint was bad, it would be popping out of out of itself. But you can see there's absolutely zero play on this. I'm actually bending the sidewall up. If that ball joint was bad, this whole wheel would move up. If you look right here, this would be moving up when I do that. And you can see it's not moving at all. So now if you did have movement on that, someone with experience can tell. Like usually I can tell if it's a wheel bearing or a ball joint if I have movement. Because you can, like if a bad wheel bearing, you can almost grab it anywhere and it's going to move around. And I can usually tell right away, almost just from experience, if it's a wheel bearing or if it's a tie rod or something like that. They're all kind of similar in a way, but that's when you get under the car and you have someone move it and you watch the tie rod, see if the tie rod's moving or popping, or if the tie rod looks like it's straight and solid, but the wheel's still moving, then you're maybe looking at a wheel bearing. Like I said, it's pretty obvious once you get under there and start looking at the suspension components. On a tie rod, on an outer tie rod, that's probably the most common on side to side, like movement going this way. If that looks tight and the wheel bearing seems to be tight, then you want to look at the inner tie rod, which is a little more not as common, but they can go bad. They do go bad, so you have to look at that. And then if you got somebody with you, if you look at the lower ball joint, and if you pull up on this, you can see that boot and actually probably the ball joint moving up and down and popping, and then you would know it's the ball joint. But you can see here on this car, I mean, there's absolutely zero movement on this. So this whole wheel, that's the same way on both sides. This suspension is very tight on this. This whole wheel is good, our whole suspension. Now they do visual checks on it. They'll check for AR bushings, control arm bushings, stuff like that. That's another thing that can cause movement. You could have some movement from control arm bushings and stuff, but like I said, this control arm is less than 2 years old, and it's got new bushings. So, and then you might have sometimes your strut. If you have a bad bearing on top, sometimes you can move your strut a little bit, and you get some movement, a little bit of movement out of the wheel. And of course, this one's tight. So this thing, on any up and up shop, would pass inspection as far as the suspension goes. Now I haven't looked at anything else. They check brakes, brake hoses. If there's a bunch of cracks in your brake hoses, they can fail it. They check other things besides just that. But I mean, if this came in, if I was an inspector at that shop and was inspecting this, and it's the same on both sides, I would not. There's nothing on this car that would fail. The stabilizer bushings all look good. Everything looks fine on it. So there's absolutely no reason why this car would fail for any kind of ball joint issue. So that's how you check it. and that's a situation with this. I'm not 100% sure what he's going to do, but it's unfortunate because you know, mechanics kind of have a bad reputation as screwing people over or trying to scam them for money, and there's not that we're not honest or whatever. And I think the majority of us are honest, but there is people, and I'm not saying all mechanics are honest. Obviously, there's some shop owners that aren't honest, or even employees trying to make more money. But I think it goes a little farther up the chain than us, as far as, you know, these big chains and dealerships and stuff all work on commission and trying to make money off of people for selling parts and selling whatever, and that's how they make their paycheck. So, unfortunately, the customer pays for it, and a lot of times good parts are being replaced, or parts that still have plenty of service life left in them are being replaced. So it helps to find someone honest that you know, and stick with them. Hopefully they'll stay honest. And it also helps to educate yourself a little bit. And if they tell you something doesn't feel right, then you know, you can investigate it. Now on this, 99% of the time, people probably say, okay, go ahead and replace them because I don't know anything. But this guy was he also was a little bit leery about it because I had just changed them less than 2 years ago. So he was like, even he was kind of questioning a little bit, thinking maybe something was up. And that's good because, you know, there's nothing wrong with these. And that's the whole thing there is if you have a bad feeling or you're questioning it, then take it somewhere else. Have someone else look at it and see what they say. And maybe you can avoid a big bill. So, and I get those all the time. I do those, I mean, a lot of people that contact me are because it's because they got some huge bill somewhere else and they don't understand why it costs them. I just had one this week. Place wanted over $900 to change a couple ignition coils, and you can see here, and it was already diagnosed by the dealer, so they were not going to do any diagnosis on it. They were just going to change the ignition coils, and you can see here on this engine. These are the ignition coils right here, and you have an 8mm bolt that comes out, and you unplug this connector, and then it just pulls out. And they were going to replace 3 of them, and it was going to be $950 to replace them. He called me, and obviously I did it for less than half that. The coils on the car I'm talking about were a little bit pricey compared to, like, you know, it's not like off a Ford 4.6 where they're $30 a piece. It was on a newer Mazda, but I don't know where they got the $950 quote at to change a couple coils. Literally, you know, the biggest thing on something like that would be diagnosing it, and the dealership had already diagnosed it, and they gave him a price that was pretty high too. And then he called the other shop, and they gave him an even higher price to the dealer, believe it or not, and the dealer had already diagnosed it, and then he called me. So I just couldn't in good conscience bend someone over like that. So anyway, I went ahead and fixed it for him, and it was quite a bit cheaper than what he was quoted. So anyway, that's just, you know, I really don't know how to end it other than just say, just be careful when you're getting your car inspected or having someone work on it. You know, try to find people that are reputable. And my opinion is, dealers are fine if you're under warranty, but after that, that person that's telling you that you need your transmission flushed and giving you all these services that you need done is a person that works off commission. So you're not talking to the actual mechanic there. You're talking to someone that literally all they do is work off commission and make money off the more parts and the more procedures they sell. So you have to take that into consideration. And it's fine. I'm not going to say that all dealers are shady or whatever, but take that into consideration when you go there. And the big chains are the same way. If they have a service writer, if you're not actually talking to the mechanic, then you're talking to someone that's trying to sell you parts and labor. And then, you know, if you need it, that's fine. That's great. That's what they're there for. But if there's, you know, you have to watch it because it's kind of cutthroat with all that stuff. So that's just my opinion, and hopefully you can find someone you trust and that they're honest and you have a good relationship with them. But anyway, that's how to check your ball joints and your suspension on your Honda Civic and maybe not get fleeced. So thanks for watching. As always, God bless.